Ladies and gentlemen, that Canadian guy Glen Foster is in my house.
When you say in the house, it really is in the house.
Yeah, you had to walk all the way through the house.
Yeah.
Past dogs and cats and children. And
Had to find the house,
had to
first
find
of
the
all.
house,
That was
yeah.
the first challenge.
And
And the GPS. We trust this shit too much.
Yeah.
We really do. Like, when people say the machines could take over, it's going to be so easy. It's going to be so easy for the machines.
Yeah.
Turn right here into the rotating knife. Oh, honey, it says go to the rotating knife.
yeah, you got to listen to the GPS. I'm always interested in the voice.
You're driving sometimes and I'm sure this is wrong what the GPS is saying. Like,
Yeah.
I sort of know this area and it seems like there would be a better way
Yeah.
to do this, but you don't trust yourself, right? Well, the technology must know.
Yeah, they got to know. They
You
got to
know?
know. We were in Costa Rica and we were following a GPS, and it took us, we thought we were being, you need more volume?
A little more volume in the cans.
Turn that up. Let me know. How's that?
Oh, that was
good?
That was better a moment ago. What happened? Drifted away.
Do you
Maybe
have
I'm not close enough.
Do you have sound?
Yeah, I can hear it, but it's just not. I
I could turn it up.
wonder if I have. Yeah, these are on. So okay.
Yeah, you got it?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. So we were in Costa Rica, and it took us to a place where I thought we were being murdered. Like, I stopped the car. I'm like, I can't drive down there anymore. And I walked down, and it was a stream. Like, the
Right.
road had long since gone. There's giant iguanas, and a guy did appear out of nowhere, like a Canadian or American guy, and he was like, he didn't want to see people, and we were like, this is terrifying. But,
And so what? You backed up and ended up going a different way?
yeah, we
Okay.
went a complete different
Yeah.
way. It was part of the adventure, of course.
Wow.
But I don't think you might get murdered here too, I guess.
Well, there's a whole lot of places to be murdered in Costa Rica, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would think
right?
so, for sure.
Any
yeah.
of those Latin American countries. I have a whole list of countries that I will not be visiting.
Okay. Which, because you're not allowed, or?
No, just because I don't want to. Just because of all the, like the murders and the kidnappings and the whatever.
Yeah, you don't
right?
think anyone's going to
I
pay
also
your
have
ransom?
I also have a. Yeah, I have a whole list of anything ending with Stan.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure I'm not going to any of those. Anywhere where you could be arrested on a whim.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like anywhere there could be political insurgents at any moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, whole list of places.
Yeah, so this is the 27th podcast we've had. Every single one I've offered kombucha, and you're the first person to take one.
Really?
So, yeah, you're very
Okay.
progressive. Very
Well,
it's
I've heard of
impressive.
it
Yeah.
and never. And what is a kombucha? Is it a fruit of some sort?
It is a fermented tea mixed with a cane sugar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's carbonated, and it's quite delicious.
So is it kind of like a natural Red Bull?
Yeah, similar. Yeah, well,
Right.
let's see what the
Yeah.
effect it has on you, for sure.
Right. Well, I'm not usually a morning person, so let's see. Let's see if I get all kombucha'd up here.
And you don't drink coffee, which is maybe why you're not a morning person. Because
No coffee, no tea.
wow, that's
Yeah,
impressive.
I don't know
Soft
how
drinks?
I stay awake. Whenever if I have to do a long drive or something, if I have to stay awake, I'll have a Diet Coke.
Mm-hmm.
Like President Trump will have 12.
I heard that. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
That is a crazy
you-
amount. I mean, I used to drink a lot more Diet Coke, and I've kind of cut down on it in general. But I still drink to the point where I like the taste of Diet Coke better than regular Coke.
Interesting.
And I used to drink regular Coke, like when I was a kid. There was no Diet
That's it.
Coke,
Yep.
right?
I don't like the stuff at all, and all I like out of it is the bubbles, and like the taste, the sugary sweetness. I don't like. It's just the bubbles. Does that have a bubble? Sometimes
This
it'll
has a
have
bit of bubble.
It has a bit
Yeah,
of bubble.
I think it's going away quickly though.
It is less bubble.
They're natural bubbles, so they can't be. They're not chemically maintained bubbles.
It's a probiotic, so it's going to increase your immune system. It's going to make you feel good.
It might just mess me up completely
It may
because
kill
my
you.
immune system is used to just garbage and chemicals and.
It may end your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. This small bit of health could kill me.
And Rothwell Heights, we could bury you out in the back, and nobody would know the
Nobody
difference.
would notice.
That buried Canadian.
This looks
guy.
like a sprawling. Is it a big property as well?
It's like a half an acre.
Wow.
Yeah, the way it sneaks around to it,
Yeah.
it appears bigger because everybody has half an acre, 5 acres over here. So
Holy
houses
cow.
are far apart. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little secret in Ottawa that people don't know about.
It's
very well.
neat.
Yeah, it is cool. And the more Blue Jays than Toronto is what.
Oh, yeah?
Well, if you look out here, you get a whole bunch of Blue Jays. Sebastien Bourgault was here last week, and he was like, "That's more Blue Jay I seen living in downtown Toronto," which he said that was a terrible French accent.
It was.
But
I thought you meant more baseball playing Blue Jays.
well, that was his joke, I think.
Oh,
Yeah,
I see. Okay. No, I thought you meant like a lot of Blue Jays live around here. I thought, and again, because it's early morning. It's like, well, my brain. Sometimes you hear things wrong.
Yeah.
And rather than go, oh, I heard that wrong, my brain will try to assemble it and rearrange reality around it.
Yeah.
So he must mean that all the Blue Jay players live here.
Of course.
Because what would they do when they had a game? They'd fly to Toronto, of course, because they're Blue Jays. They can do that.
It's like, maybe in Cuba there's Blue Jays that live in small houses.
That's right.
Like this. But excuse me.
So this would be a small house for a baseball player.
I would think so. Yeah, we knew this is like the guest house.
Yeah, that
exactly. I don't
Yeah.
think they would put up with this. Having what do you need? You need something?
Nothing at all.
Oh, okay, you're staring at your glass.
I am.
So you did some comedy last night.
Last night, no.
Oh, okay.
It was 2 nights ago.
2 nights ago.
Yeah, I just did a spot.
Just do 7 minutes.
7 minutes. It was pretty much exactly 7 minutes.
Wow,
actually.
that's impressive.
Well, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at, if you tell me to do. I actually, who's the guy? Mark Maron. We were in doing the Winnipeg Fest together, and there was some little show that we had to do on the side, type thing, some small side show, and so they only had, because they had so many people on. They said we really only want 5 minutes each from everybody, and I said, well, that's no problem. If you tell me to do 5 minutes, I'll do 5 minutes. And I can't remember exactly how that came around, but Mark Maron bet me that he didn't think I could do exactly 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I gave him my watch, right? Went on stage and came off within 5 seconds of 5 minutes.
No, nice. That's impressive.
Without a watch.
Wow.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
So,
you weren't offering up the watch if you.
No,
Okay.
nothing like that. It was a $5 bet or something like that. But no, it was, I get to be on your podcast. No, he's never.
You've never been on his podcast?
No, I don't know Mark Maron well enough.
Oh, well,
no.
I mean, you just
I'd only that was really only like the first time I'd met him.
And
was at the Winnipeg Comedy Festival.
What year was that?
Oh, it was at least 5 or 6 years ago, at least.
Okay, so well into his podcast, right? Like,
I think so.
Mike McDonald was on it not long ago.
On Mark Maron's podcast.
Yeah, it was great, and he's he's beside my table right there. He's been on this podcast as well.
Right then.
Yeah. For whatever weight that carries with you. So I find it very impressive, a guy who's done Just for Laughs 8 times, obviously 30 years of comedy to be
30 plus now
30
at this
plus.
point. Yeah,
Wow.
I always look at it as so 1985-ish was the last day job that I had, 1984, 1985.
Okay. How old were you then?
24.
24. So
24,
you were
25.
Born in 1960?
60. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm 70. That's why I can make that connection so fast. Yeah.
Okay.
So, where were you born?
Montreal, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Lachine.
Born and raised?
No, not at all. Like, born and immediately escaped.
Born and sent away?
Born and sent away. Yeah. Well, my father got a job in Cambridge,
Okay.
so we moved to Cambridge. I grew up in Cambridge, Southern Ontario.
Okay.
London for a short period of time, and then Oakville from 77 on.
Okay. And that's where
we in fact just sold my mother's house in Oakville that she's been living in since 1977.
Wow.
And there's some stuff to clear out.
I bet. What's something interesting that you found that's
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Like Instamatic. My mom is a pack rat, and I'm a pack rat. So what was some of the stuff like Instamatic cameras?
Okay. Did it
from
work?
the 70s.
Try
You know,
it.
the 110s
Yeah.
and the 120s.
Like the
No, that's a Polaroid.
Okay.
No, I'm talking Instamatics. I'm talking about those little. They were little. They look like probably slightly larger than a phone would be now.
Okay.
And it was a 110 film.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And yeah, you had to wind it, or some of them had like a click mechanism. If you squeezed them together,
Okay.
then it would advance the film that way. But the thing was, it was a tiny, tiny negative.
Okay.
Right. So it wasn't like a 35 millimeter negative. It would be about maybe 1/10 the size of a 35 millimeter negative. So you couldn't really blow it up or do anything with it. It was meant for just snapshots and putting in photo albums type thing. But you wouldn't be doing any, poster size blow ups or not that you in those days it would probably cost you $1,000 to do that anyway. I mean, just look at the technology we're using here right now. I mean, to do this 20 years ago would have cost thousands of dollars, and here we are with a $300 recording box, because I got one of those myself actually.
Zoom.
They're great.
Yeah,
They're
unbelievable
fantastic
sound.
little box. The new ones are even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got I think even more channels on them, and
More things that I don't understand.
Yeah, Yeah, well, it took me a while to figure it out.
For sure.
Whether she be using stereo or 4-channel or
Yeah,
because it's
good
great
luck.
for stage too, because you can isolate the board mic, the stage mic, and then put a couple mics on stage.
Yep.
Feed those in as well.
Yep.
And it's basically like a 4-track in a box.
That's right. That's a great idea, is to record your set with this and then add it to the video.
I'm obsessive about recording. I could probably start my own radio station.
That's a big part of your...
I've got like 30 years worth of recording. Like,
Wow.
honestly, the earliest recording I have is late 70s, early 80s.
on an audio recording.
No, I have actually some video because one of the guys in the AV club at my high school
That's amazing.
shot me very, very early.
Yeah.
I think 80 something. I've got video from the Ice House in Pasadena.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
When were you there?
84.
Wow,
I moved down to LA in 84, and I was there for about 11 months. But I didn't have a green card or anything like that, so it's just not allowed really to work.
Yeah.
Had,
jokes
had
for
to work for free.
Yeah.
Much like you do now.
Yeah. So, okay,
Much
let's...
like if you do comedy now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, you didn't know anyway. You
The
didn't get
money
paid.
hasn't gone up at all.
It's gone down.
That's
hasn't
right.
it?
It has gone down.
Since
Yeah,
the
sure.
80s,
If you
for
think
sure.
about it, if you look at the inflation and everything else, it's a complete dive. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they're still paying you. Here, you want $50 in the '80s? It's still $50 here, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's the club game.
Yeah.
So
what age did you move to Southern Ontario?
One, like not even
okay,
one.
Okay, so that you were.
I was a baby.
Okay, you weren't raised
Yeah,
in Montreal.
yeah.
So, and the brothers and sisters?
I have a brother and 2 sisters.
Okay.
Actually, I'm the oldest. Then I have a sister who's a vet.
Like an animal.
Animal vet.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Ottawa?
No. In Peterborough,
Okay.
actually. Well, she's not. She retired, but and my brother is a computer programmer type guy, and my other sister was a pharmaceutical rep at one point. So I'm kind of the gray sheep of the family, with the non-traditional.
Yeah. It's amazing path you've got for yourself, for sure. So, at what age did you start doing comedy? You said high school, and people were recording you, and
Yeah. I probably did my first shows. Well, I know for sure that I did my first proper show at a high school in London, Ontario, and that was my first. That was my first sort of minor glimpse of fame.
Okay.
Because we had just moved to London, and I was a complete nobody in this high school, and then I did this show, and it probably wasn't a great show, but by high school quality levels.
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of impressions back then, and anyway, so nobody knew me before the high school variety show. Everybody knew me after the high school variety.
It's a good way
show.
to get known, right? Who were the
So
impressions?
it
Do you
was-
remember?
Oh yeah, Jackie Stewart.
Okay.
Howard Cosell. Not great impressions either. Do you know who Jackie Stewart is? The race car.
Motor car race.
Motor car racing. It's a great day for motor car racing. So I had done a thing about this whole long piece I had done with all these different voices, and it was about World War III. And it was like a play-by-play of the Russians have fired now. Here come the Amer- Quebec is separated and it's floating off into the North Atlantic. This is a weird long.
Still funny.
Yeah, and Howard Cosell was an ABC. Well, it's down to the Russians have fight now. But I mean, all my impressions kind of sort of sound the same.
Yeah. That's funny in itself, right? That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
So. And at the time, too, I was actually really good, like almost Michael Winslow level at microphone sound effects.
Okay.
And
that's the police academy guy?
That's the guy,
Oh,
yeah.
right on, okay.
And I was actually quite good at, but then I snored, so I had an operation. And the snoring came back eventually. I don't know if it really helped at all. And all it really did was take away my ability to make very good gunshot sounds.
Really? Because that's his main thing, his gunshot sounds.
Well, it took my ability away. He can
Yeah.
obviously, but so I had some, So it was,
So you had to
and
buy a real
then I
gun.
got divorced. So what was the point?
And you didn't need a gun anymore.
I didn't even need to have that operation, really.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having a guy who's super serious about doing impressions and being like slightly off, 20% off, but he's so confident.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's lots of guys like that who do impressions, and they're not really that good. Like, they have the cadence, maybe, but not the actual tone, right? Because there's two parts to an impression would be the, getting their style down, but also getting their voice level and quality
and so they just go for it anyway.
Yeah, they just did. That impression sounded kind of like the other impression.
They're all the same.
I heard a funny story yesterday about a ventriloquist who would bring his own mic, right? And it had a great big bulbous windscreen on it, right? So he's a ventriloquist, and he's basically just hiding behind the mic, right? And if you look from the side, you can see his lips move. So it's like, come on.
That's funny. That's like having a burqa or whatever.
That's right. Yeah.
That's good. So before you did this in high school, were you like the class clown?
I was never a class clown.
Yeah.
No, I was not a class clown, but I would be the guy whose short story got read or poetry got read or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But not a class clown. No, not at all.
Love the writing, passionate about that.
I guess so. Yeah.
And then once you're on stage, you develop,
on stage. Well, there's two ways of coming at this comedy game. There's people who are naturally gregarious, funny individuals, and they have to find material to fit that persona or find material to keep them on stage, kind of thing. And then there's people who just have kind of odd, funny ideas, who have to learn to present and perform, and that was me.
Okay.
So, and I'm still not 100% comfortable on stage. It took me 20 years to take the mic out of the stand.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge thing to have the mic out of the stand, because the mic, well, I actually do a bit, I take the mic out of the stand. So the reason comedians take the mic out of the stand is because the stand, creates a psychological barrier between the audience and the comedian. I've always found my cockiness and general air of superiority create a much bigger barrier, but I don't expect you to be able to understand that.
That's good. I remember that joke. You said that joke.
I opened one of my Just for Laughs with that.
Okay.
Yeah, 2008, I think.
Yeah, that's funny. I remember. Do you remember that time we were somewhere in the same show? Fortunate enough for me, and I adjusted the mic stand up to my height, and I fixed everything, and then I took the mic out and put the mic stand in. Nobody laughed. I remember you thought it was funny. Yeah.
Little subtle.
I told you I was going to do that. And you're like, that's hilarious, and I did it. I was so proud that and nobody laughed.
Yeah.
Zero.
It's sad when you put a lot of work into something and people don't even don't laugh at the joke. Don't know you have told a joke or done something funny. They just didn't notice at all.
They're still waiting for more.
Yeah, that's like
something big's coming. I'm like, that's about it.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, it happens for sure. Does it still happen to you often?
It's tough to find a great opening line that gets them on your side, says something about you, is funny, right? So I'm always looking for new opening lines. I've had dozens of them.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly looking for new ones.
What's the favorite one that you've had?
One I'm playing with lately is, well, I'll be completely honest with you. I didn't really plan anything. I don't even mean the show. I mean my life in general.
That's good.
What's that old saying? The old saying is if you plan to fail. No, wait. If you fail to, you know what? I actually had planned to Google this earlier, but I failed.
That's good. That's good. That's a funny one.
Here's something I learned from my friend Larry Horowitz, and it's especially helpful in a corporate environment because there's no MC, there's nobody warming up the show. If you're doing one of these after dinner speaker type things, you're it. Right? There's nobody to warm up. If you're working in a club and you're headlining, you've got an MC, you've got a few opening acts, the crowd gets warmed up, they're used to the notion of comedy. But a lot of times with these corporate event things, they're not. They have no idea what's coming. You know what I mean? So it's cold start all the time. And I watched my friend Larry once in a golf banquet where it was just complete bedlam when they brought him on. They had a buffet going, and they brought him on in the middle of all this, right? And he just stood there and just talked about things that were going on in the room. Oh, I see people eating at the buffet. Hey, it's great to be here. This is and he just talked and talked. But he didn't say anything that might be perceived as a joke for the first 5 minutes or so, right? Because he was just getting them used to the notion that someone was actually there talking and getting them used to the fact that, hey, maybe you should listen to this. So, and it's a hard lesson to learn, but until you say something on stage that could be perceived as funny or not funny, they can't decide if you are or aren't. Right?
Great. Yeah.
So you do get a little bit of, everyone thinks you got to get right out there and get the first laugh right away.
Yeah.
And you kind of do, right? But in a situation where you can't, you do have that little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
As long as you don't do anything where they go, well, that's not funny.
Yeah.
Right? Or that's a joke. I don't get that joke.
Yeah.
As long as it's not a joke-like thing that requires a laugh or not laugh.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, yeah. So
I mean,
it was a good lesson.
Yeah, if it's not a comedy club, right? Like you say,
especially if it's not a comedy club, or a comedy environment. Even,
that's right. There's so many distractions in anything else, right? Like
well, it amazes me too. I mean, music works anywhere. Anywhere. You can pick up a guitar and sit down on a street corner and play to yourself if you want to. Music works anywhere. With comedy, if the sound isn't right, if the lights aren't bright enough, if the ceiling is too high, if the crowd is drunk or not drunk enough, or this or that, or there's so many factors, it's amazing comedy ever works.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good point, for sure.
You know?
Yeah. It is. And there's something about, like you said, when he gets up there and mentions, I mean, to me, that's funny. Like, for the people listening, and he's like, hey, the buffet's still open.
Right.
And, that's, anyone still have their coat check ticket?
Right. Exactly
funny,
that
right?
sort of stuff, right?
That's amazing.
Just to get them used to the notion of listening.
Yeah. I remember one time I hosted an event. This is before I was a comedian, and the same thing. People were walking around, and I started, like, creating songs, and there's a lady in a red dress ladies getting more buffet and this stuff, and that got everyone's attention, and then they all sort of focused in on the story I was about to tell. You're absolutely right. That's actually a great technique, because as I've gone from speaker to comedian, like you say, you try and get to that joke first, right? And and so you kind of, I had that skill, and then now I go to that, and then it's nice to think that just be yourself for a while.
Especially if you're a speaker and not specifically a comedian. If it's then you've got even more leeway, because they don't expect you to be funny.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's my key.
Yeah.
Go and expect
this guy's funnier than I thought he'd be.
Yeah, for sure.
Didn't think he'd be funny at all, but he's mildly funny. Well, that's all right then. I'll listen to that.
That's my ticket, man, for sure. So you started comedy at 85 at high school. Where to go for that? Did you go to clubs soon after?
No, I didn't start in 85. I started in I started in high school.
High school, 70.
Yeah, so 78 or 79 would have been the first time I went down to Yuck Yucks in Toronto, after we moved to Oakville. So we moved to Oakville in 77.
Yeah.
I probably went down to Yuck Yucks for the first time in 78 or so.
And they must have just
been
open,
right? They had, first of all, they didn't have amateur night. They had amateur hour after the regular show.
Okay.
So basically that would start at 10:30 or 11 o'clock on a Monday night.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
But at that time, it wasn't like there was a million channels on television, so people would actually, be out. There was much more of a live scene, musically, comedically, whatever. There weren't, 50 channels of comedy that you could watch at the drop of a hat, or YouTube or anything else. But it's still hard. I mean, you're following a professional show, allegedly professional, because the club had only been open for a couple of years, so they only had a few guys working anyway.
Was this a church basement?
No, I missed the church basement. I was in for the original club at on Bay Street.
Okay.
But they must have just moved from the church basement, because I never saw the church basement.
Okay.
So, so I did that for. And again, I was in high school, so I had to take the train into Toronto, and it stops running at a certain time, and so So I did the first one I did was the first amateur hour, 5-minute spot I did. I pretty much lifted the high school variety show I'd done with all the impressions and everything else. And then a week later, I went back and I did probably something very similar. And then the third week, I went back and I thought, you know what? I'm tired of all this material I've done 2 shows in a row. Why don't I just write completely new material? And it was pretty much silence for the entire 5 minutes. And then they had, at the time, Mark Breslin, the guy who owned the club, ran the club, would play a car crash sound. And they go, "Oh, it's a disaster. Glen Foster is a disaster." And it was horrible and cruel. And so I didn't go back for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so they owe me 3 years.
Yeah. Is there no comedy in that 3 years?
Maybe here or there, but not in a club.
Yeah.
You know, I was part of, I don't know if you ever remember an organization called Junior Achievement.
No.
Toastmasters.
Okay, yeah.
So Toastmasters was kind of a branch of that, and that was like a public speaking type.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was involved in that for a while too, while I was in London. So, I don't exactly know the timelines, but I do know that I didn't go back for 3. Partially because at the end of that horrible show, the trains had stopped running. I took a cab out to my uncle's place in Scarborough from downtown Toronto. I had no idea how to get anywhere. I didn't know how big Toronto was, or so it's like a $70 cab ride at 1:00 in the morning. My uncle's meeting me, not very happy.
Yeah.
Right. And so just all in general, it took me 3 years to go back.
And then you went back?
And then I went back, and then they started having, I guess, amateur nights on Monday night. Anyway, so then about 6 months after that, I was moving up. It was much easier to move up the ladder back then too, because there was way less guys, way more stage time. That's the thing these days, guys trying to get stage time. Holy crap! It's like back then there were about 10 of us.
Yeah.
And we all worked every night, and sometimes we did 3 shows a night.
Yeah.
You just can't get the same level or quality of stage time these days. I know, there's guys just starting out. They're lucky if they get on 5 minutes a month type thing, depending on what area they're in. I mean, in Toronto, there's a lot more open mics and stuff, but that's not exactly quality stage time.
Yeah.
As
far as quality stage time, you mean like in a comedy club? With people who are going to react to comedy.
Right. Yeah. What I mean by not 13 other comics in the audience.
Yeah. That's
what I mean? Like one guy entertaining 13 other guys.
That's right.
Who are all going to get up and rotate, and half of them are going to leave by the end of it. Or there might be 3 people in the audience because they are friends who are dragged along by one of the comics.
Right.
Then they make that comic go on last because they don't want his 3 friends to leave.
It's creative thinking. That's good. That's
well,
smart.
that's how it,
Yeah,
But,
that is, for sure. If you can get up at a place that's not normally a comedy club, and people aren't reacting to your jokes, and you think they're no good, or
Well, but then a lot of times at the amateur level, you just all you really need is one step above talking to yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
So you really just need to hear it fall out of your face, right? And sometimes when I'm working on a new bit, or I've got, like if I've got a Just for Laughs coming, or Winnipeg, or any of those sort of things, I'll just hit every open mic I can, because I just want to hear it fall out of my face. I just want to have it, and if you get a reaction in one of those type rooms, you got something.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that's the worst circumstances to be doing the joke under.
Yeah, I want to jump ahead just a little bit, because I thought of something that's interesting. Because when you get up on stage at Just for Laughs, and I mean, I've seen the pictures. I've never been, but I've watched the on TV and the whole bit, and the shots that you see from behind you, and there's this huge, beautiful theater, and it's an amazing, probably the best venue possible, right?
Oh,
for
yeah.
a comedian.
Oh, yeah.
And so you've come from Swizzle's Comedy Night, and there's, like you said, 7 people waiting for their turn, writing in notepads, and that's a real thing. You've really done that. You've gone probably one night from a small little club.
Oh, yeah. Or go the other way is even worse. Go to a 3,000 seater one night, and then the next night,
here I'm back again.
In this 13-seat room. I've done
That's
shows for 3 people. So.
How recently?
Not recently. Well, I get. Okay, so in L.A., at the Comedy Store in L.A., they've got a room they call the Belly Room, and it's an upstairs room, and it's a holding room basically for the people who can't get into the main room. So the main room has a bit of turnover. People come and go. It's not like set showtime type thing. It's just kind of continually running. So once the room opens up a little bit, then people from the belly room will go to the main room.
Okay.
But in the meantime, they had comics entertaining those people in the belly room because, they put every room to use, I guess.
Yeah.
But you'd have a situation where it would, for me anyway, it'd be like 2:00 in the morning, and
That's crazy.
you'd have like 30 or 40 people in this belly room.
Yeah.
And then space would open up downstairs, and half of them or more than half of them would leave, or someone like Damon Wayans or whatever would drop in and do 20 minutes or just ahead of, like, getting bumped.
Yeah.
It just that was the most annoying thing, So people would just walk in off the street because they were known comedians, and it still happens, right? And, you're sitting there waiting. You're, oh, good, there's 40 people here. At least I can talk to these 4. Then someone comes in, walks in, does 40 minutes for those 40 people.
Yeah.
And then most of them just leave, and there's maybe 3 left at the end. So I've actually done shows for 3. But on the other hand, as you say, I've done shows for, 3,000 people.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing.
Average, I guess, is like 100 or 200. Actually, get this. Okay. I've actually entertained 200 people in a 3,000-seat auditorium.
Oh, that's
terrible.
And they weren't sitting together?
When they won't sit together. I know. If they'd at least sit together.
Oh, that is terrible.
Yeah, but,
you hear your jokes bouncing back at you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was an interesting... it was no doing of mine because I was just on the show. It wasn't like I promoted or booked it. Yeah. So there was a guy in Saskatoon or Regina, I can't remember, and he decided that he was going to bring some comedy to town. So what would you do if you're starting out in comedy and bringing, as a promoter? What would you do? You'd probably, find a small room, 50, 100 seats, whatever. See how it goes, Yeah. Not this guy. He rented an arena.
Yeah.
He hired like 10 different comics.
Nice.
And I guess he just thought, well, I'll tell people these comics are coming and that'll fill the arena.
Yeah.
And it didn't.
No. But he still sold 250 tickets.
Oh, my God. I don't know if he sold them or gave them away or whatever, but holy crap.
Yeah.
It was just the most bizarre.
And this is Saskatoon?
Yeah, it was like probably 20 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Just make sure it's not the harvest season or something like that.
No, it was nothing to do with
season.
that. It was nothing to do with that. It was just the fact that this guy I think he had mental issues, but money. He had money from something.
I can imagine who he is. He could be any number of people.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. So how long was it before you start? You said a couple of years.
Oh, then the one big break, I guess, would be Evening at the Improv in 1982.
Okay, that's a TV
and
show.
That was because, and people don't know this, but Evening at the Improv originally was a Canadian production. Mm-hmm. So even though they shot it in L.A., they had to have a Canadian on every show.
Oh.
So that was a bit of a break for some of the Canadians, right?
Yeah.
Because of the CanCon rules,
like
the
the
funding, whatever it was. Yeah. So they had to have a Canadian on every show. So that when I did Evening at the Improv, the host was Tony Curtis.
Okay.
Which is like, at the time, one of the biggest movie stars in the world, because back then comedy, on TV was a new thing, and hosts were lining up to do it. Like big celebrities were lining up to be guest hosts on these shows.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I went way too long. And
like your spot was too long?
Oh, way too long. I was just completely oblivious going through doing my thing.
Yeah.
And at one point, Tony Curtis was actually standing behind me with his hand on my shoulder.
No.
So embarrassing.
Turns the mic off.
Yeah, so, maybe that had something to do with why I never got back there for a long time. But
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
What year was that? Do you remember?
82.
82?
Yeah.
And then, so you're a headline. That's impressive for sure. That's not long into your career, right?
Well, back then it was, you could go in 6 months. You could go from amateur night to headliner in 6 months or a year or so. Mm-hmm. Just because you could get the stage. Are you familiar with Malcolm Gladwell?
Yeah.
The tipping point or Outliers?
Outliers is right there.
Yeah, which one is the one where he talks about the 10,000 hours?
I think it's the tipping point.
I think it is the tipping point. Yeah, so he talks about the 10,000 hours that it takes to become proficient. Mm-hmm. And that it was so much easier to get your 10,000 hours in those days, right?
10,000 repetitions of something for sure to
Yeah.
become an expert.
And even now, even at my level, it's hard to get stage time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we used to go out when I was touring with Yuck Yucks in the early '80s.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go out west. You'd go out for 6 weeks. You'd work most of those nights, and you'd come back with some cash.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's what
if you
need.
didn't throw it in the video lottery machines or whatever, right? But and you'd probably do that 2 or 3 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gotten to the point now where, first of all, they don't have all the one-nighters in between the club weekends, because that's how they would structure it. They would have, you'd work a weekend at a club, then you'd work a bunch of little tiny places on your way to the next club weekend, then a bunch of little tiny places, right? And they had all these little tiny places where they're doing comedy. So if you went out west for 6 weeks, you were pretty much working, you know, every night.
Yeah.
And you, as I say, you do that maybe a couple times a year. And then it became you'd only do that 1 time a year. And then it became like, well, you're going out once a year, but you're only going for 3 weeks. Then it was like the airfare isn't worth going out because you're not making enough money and you have to pay for your off nights. And there were more off nights than on nights. And over the last couple of years, it's been like if I did a club, I wouldn't see it again for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
You
for
know?
sure. What do you think there's always a different way to do things, right? I mean,
There's first of all, there's just an oversupply of comics. It's a crazy oversupply of comics and not enough clubs.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, you know, so much comedy available on television and Netflix and YouTube and everything else. So why do people want to go out for anything?
That's right. TVs are
Right?
so awesome now.
Right.
Yeah,
And the
for
TVs
sure.
are so awesome and everything else. I mean, you still can't touch live stand-up. I mean, live stand-up in a club it's even better than in a theater,
My favorite thing.
I
for
think,
sure, yeah.
you know, because a hot club is way better than a theater.
Yeah. You know how I judge that is I'll go to a comedy club and I'll sit there and drink a beer and watch the show.
Yeah.
You know, I never think about pulling out my phone, anything like that.
Right.
I'm so into what this person has created and is saying and to me that's
My memory's not what it used to be for various reasons, but I used to be able to sit and watch an entire night of comedy, like 3 or 4 hours of comedy, and pretty much rattle back what everybody did.
Yeah.
And now it's just my brain isn't there. I can barely,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, the
Like
electronics.
if you get a couple, and it's a thing too where you have to stay. You know, I mean, you know, he's disgraced now, I suppose. But the Louis C.K. I mean, the reason Louis C.K. could put out an hour a year is because he could do an hour a night.
Yeah.
Right.
We walk in
Somewhere
everybody.
and bump everybody off and just
Yeah.
do whatever. Right. I mean, if I could do that, I could do 2 hours a year.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, it took him 30 years to get to that.
Oh,
point
I'm sure
too,
it did.
right?
Yeah.
For sure. Of walking in and,
Right.
I read the stories of him taking his motorcycle from club to club
Yeah.
and,
Oh, yeah.
getting $50 pop. And that's,
Same with Jay Leno, right?
Yeah.
Jay Leno talks about doing that sort of thing as well.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
But you just can't get that amount of stage time anymore.
Well, what's the solution? There has to be a solution. Like
I don't know what the damn solution
Because
is.
the one thing a lot of things impress me about you and your comedy, but the fact that you record it and then you listen to everything.
Some of it I just kind of put it away and don't ever listen to it. But a lot of times, if I'm working on something, if I'm working on a particular piece or bit or trying to time something down to fit a specific, showcase parameter or whatever, then I will watch it, and I will not only watch it, but I will like put it into a video editor and figure out exactly how long each bit is, exactly how long the average laugh on that bit is.
That's amazing, right? That itself has the value of 100 reps.
Well, yeah,
for sure.
And then sometimes in watching it, I'll say, oh, I could have said that differently, or I could there's this particular piece I've been working on for a few months now, and it's only at this point maybe a 3 or 4 minute piece, but every time I go up, I change it slightly. I add something to it. I take a different tact on it, or I flip the order of some of it around so that it flows a little better. And I'm very obsessive about this stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what it takes, right? I mean,
well, it does. Yeah,
attention to detail.
Yeah.
For
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
People don't realize that. They just think you're a happy, funny guy getting up on
I
stage.
was trying to get a business going called Joke Mechanic, where I would be, providing this service to various comedians type thing. But the amount of energy that you have to put into it versus what you can actually charge a comedian.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
It's totally true.
So it becomes like, is it actually worth doing?
Yeah.
But I do find this. I find that, like, when I go to these open mics and stuff, and I do go to a lot of open mics and things, and not always to perform, but just to hang out or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I find that usually to perform. I mean, it's stupid to go to one of these things and not perform.
Yeah.
Right? But I find that just being in that environment might trigger something later for me.
Yep.
Creatively. It's
Yep.
good to be in a creative comedy environment, whether you're doing it or not,
Mm-hmm.
because you're in that, you might hear something on stage that, I'm not talking about ripping something off or changing the words of something. I'm just saying that laughing, being in a comedic environment contributes to your own comedic creativity.
Yeah, Drew Lynch, who was a comedian who was on this podcast, said, and it was an interesting thing for me, that action precedes motivation. So, like, if you're not feeling motivated to write a joke, then you go and do something, right? And to be in an environment with like-minded people who are always thinking about comedy, it's going to spark something in your brain to start thinking about something.
This is the whole motion creates emotion argument.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
That if you want to be happy, smile more.
Mm-hmm.
Don't smile because you're happy, right?
It works for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and that's exactly it. I mean, you need to be out there. You need to be doing things. And for me, who's obviously starting comedy later in life, in my 40s, and don't have the time between hockey practices sometimes to get out to clubs.
Yeah.
I need to find a way to sort of expedite that and shortcut it, right? And so for me, it has been videotaping, audio taping, mostly videotaping. And what I do is I watch the picture first, and then I just see my mannerisms and how see if I can actually see what I'm doing on stage with my body language.
Listen to it?
I do, and then I'll listen to it with that, and I'll go even a step.
No,
further.
what I'm saying is you watch it with the sound off.
Sound off first,
really,
just so that I can see that I'm communicating properly, right? Because I mean, they say communication is 60% nonverbal, right? So
is that why I'm doing it wrong?
You're the master, so
I'm not the master.
I'm throwing it by a hair. Anyone who's been in it 30 plus years and
but the thing is, as I said, it took me 20 years to get the mic out of the stand, and I'm still not as physical on stage as a lot. I'm still funnier written than I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although that is changing, because certainly this bit that I've been working on lately is pretty. It's not all performance, but a lot of performance.
Yeah.
It's performance driven rather than.
Some comedians get all their laughs from their movement.
Some
on
of
stage,
them do,
right?
Yeah,
For sure.
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there's also the other end of it. There's too much movement, right? They say call it walking all over your scene. If you create a scene in someone's head, and then you sort of just, if you're talking about a funeral and people can picture that and this, and then the next minute you're walking all over that, it just creates chaos in people's minds, right? So they don't feel as comfortable at listening to what you're saying.
There's a lot to the physicality of it.
And so the second part, I'll listen to the audio and obviously the pauses and the way you're saying things and the reaction of people. And the third part is I'll try and pick up people's reactions, because often people and then they'll whisper something to someone around them, or you'll pick something up and then what's thinking, because I mean most comedy crowds are similar, right, when they're reacting to things. So if someone's saying something that you've made them think of, then you can tag it with something that you now know that they're thinking based,
right.
You know what I mean? So there's huge value in videotaping it and watching it from different angles, And I mean, that all comes from when the 8 years previous when I was a motivational speaker, and just finding every place to learn about it, and books and videos and everything.
I have a joke about motivational speakers.
Oh, please.
I use it. This is how one of the things I'll say when I do a corporate show is I'll say, I love watching motivational speakers because they all start out the same. It's like, today we're all going to learn to work together as a team. So first thing we're going to do is split up into small groups.
You've heard my speech.
And PowerPoint. How much
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint do you need? It's just ridiculous. Gets to the point where it's like, okay, here's a pie chart showing that people would prefer to get their information from a bar graph.
Yeah. You should never have words on a PowerPoint, and you should never be looking at it.
You should never have words.
Well, words, yeah.
Really?
Well, for me, for a speaker, because it's a crutch, right? Then they're like, "Where am I?" Oh, yeah, the three most important. I mean, I actually do have one with the 3 points of my whole speech that I
Right.
put at the start and at the end, but I'm not referring to it.
No.
And the rest are just images to create emotions in people, right?
It's like Facebook. They don't like too many words in their ads either.
It's exactly like that.
I've had so many problems trying to translate posters to Facebook sometimes because I put too much type.
Yeah. Well, if you want to advertise on Facebook too, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
They say it'll reach 1/10 the amount of people if it has words on it.
Yeah, but that's their arbitrary bullshit, though,
that
right?
is, yeah.
Like,
I agree.
It's not that it wouldn't reach those people. They just don't want a whole bunch of ads that just look like words. They don't want you putting like one giant word in an ad, right?
Have you ever noticed if you advertise on Facebook, then your personal page will then be exposed to less people?
No.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no confirmation in that, but
what?
So if you have a page,
Yeah.
you see Glen Foster's comedy page,
Yeah.
and you have a show coming up, and you pay $10 to make it exposed to an extra 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Okay, you've done that, and then now you've also put it on your page, and normally you know how many people are going to like your poster. You know you're going to get 40 people liking it. All of a sudden you get 7. Right, it's because they've got an algorithm to make you increase.
They're stealing that and they're calling it ad views.
Well, yeah, and they want you to go, hey, it's not getting the normal response. I should boost my ad.
I have never. Okay, I've done a fair bit of Facebook advertising. I've never threw a lot of money at it because I don't generally have a lot of money for some of the smaller things I do.
Yeah,
but I have never found it effective.
I think
never found it effective.
It's them playing with algorithms, right?
Yeah, I know.
That's all it is, and you're asking them to do it a little bit more. And I think it works to expose you to people who ordinarily wouldn't be in your loop in your feed.
Right. Like I think you pretty much have to throw like $1,000 at it or something to get any real noticeable.
That's right.
And if you're only doing a 200-seat room, you don't have $1,000 to throw at Facebook.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Well, for me, when I'm doing my show, my Friday night show, and I want 150 people there, right? So if I put $10 in, it's exposed to 1,000 more people, and I'll get 4% of that. That's a lot of people interested, and then even smaller. And so it's selling 20
interested
tickets.
Means nothing.
Well, no, interested. Yeah, interested does mean nothing until they show up with a ticket.
I'm interested in showing up. Great.
But of that, you may get 15 to 20 people coming to your show.
Really?
And you pay $10. I'm experimenting with it right now, and that's kind of what I'm.
Well, you're doing much better at your $10 than I am for like $50 or $60.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't
but
put 50
mind
or 60.
you, you're trying to bring them to a place that is known as a comedy club.
That's right.
Whereas I was trying to bring them to places that are not generally known as comedy clubs, but just venues.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, yes. So when the name Yuck Yucks is on it,
right,
it's obviously already got an audience following, or people who go like, "Oh, I want to try that place out."
Right.
I've heard it's there.
Yeah, so you've got a bit of a It'd be interesting to see how it does against just a plain venue.
It would,
right?
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah. That
because that is the problem my thing is I'm not big enough that a Just for Laughs is going to tour me, or that someone's going to tour me at the theater level. But I'm a little too big for the clubs to get any money out of them because they're not paying any more money than they would anyone else, right? So I have to kind of set up my own. So mostly what I'm trying to do is set up my own shows, and that just becomes a whole logistics nightmare on its own because I stopped trying to do the theater shows independently because it costs a fortune to rent the theater, and then you have to pay them pretty much for every ticket you sell, right? Because they've got these capital cost things built into tickets and this fee and that fee, and by the time you turn around, you're looking at like $45 for a damn comedy show, and it's like, well, I wouldn't pay $45 to see me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
so that's why I'm trying now to do more. Find a nice mom and pop restaurant, bar, whatever. It's sort of supporting small business as well, right? And that's, as I say, you get a real nice small venue. That's great comedy anyway.
Yeah.
Right. That's where comedy should be seen, is in small venues.
Yeah, I agree. That's what you brought up early. An interesting point.
Just whack my mic.
Is that in the past, all you had to do was work on your comedy.
Yeah.
And then go and do it. And nowadays, because there's so many people doing it, the game has shifted, right?
Right.
You got to work on your game for sure.
Yeah.
But you also got to work on who you are. The publicity of it, the marketing of Glen Foster.
I know. I was one of the first comics to have a website, and I just got bowled over by the technology that came along and the skills that came along, and so I was one of the first, but I got completely lost in the explosion that followed. And the Dane Cooks and the Russell Peters,
Right.
they were the ones who launched themselves.
That's right.
Right? And I just wasn't there.
But you're still trying to get there.
I'm still trying to get there,
Yeah.
but it's so much harder now.
It is harder.
Because there's a billion people trying to do exactly the same thing, and a fucking cat video will get a million videos against a million views against anything you could do.
I just had this image of Glen Foster surrounded by kittens.
Yes, well,
We could do that.
I'll do a dog video, but I will not do a cat video.
Yeah, no, cats are huge, man, for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, this is what you're up against, right? Like the tools exist now to make yourself famous.
Yes.
But a billion other people are trying to do the same thing. So it's just a wall of noise. Everything is a wall of noise. Twitter's, Facebook, it's all. And unless you have, I would say, at least 10,000 followers who are real followers, not the bullshit ones that just show up, you know what I mean? That follow everybody because they're an internet guru and they're going to increase your traffic. No, you just increase my traffic by following me, but you've diluted the purity of the best thing is a dedicated mailing list, right? But trying to get people to sign up for something like
email,
that.
you mean,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
exactly. But nobody wants to even do that, right? Because everybody's just so inundated with visit my website, join my mailing list,
It has to be
follow my
so
Twitter.
easy, right? It has to be
It
click a
has
button.
to be click a button, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm not there yet.
No.
And
Have you read the book? What is it called? Crush It.
no.
It's Gary Vee.
Who's Gary Vee?
Gary Vee is a guy who started off as a wine seller, selling wine in his
Okay.
parents' business, a wine distribution, and he started off on the internet selling wine and made a crazy amount of money. But since then, he's become a speaker who gets paid ridiculous amounts of money to go around and tell people the future, and basically he tells you the present, and people aren't aware of the present,
Right.
So they think it's the future. And he tells you what's going on in the world, right, in the internet world. And his stuff is all about how to do that. And he's cutting edge. And the fact that he's out there saying it makes it cutting edge. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's the whole thing is he'll say, like, if you're into real estate, take your video camera or your phone and you go. And this is 5 years ago he said this stuff. Now real estate agents are doing that.
Sure,
right?
it's like you can't. I mean, you list a house now. Automatically, they come and videotape your house and
That's right.
and do a virtual walkthrough.
That's right.
They call it.
Yeah. So we need the comedy version of that, right? And a lot of people are like hesitant to put their bits on the internet where you are not.
I am hesitant.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't put a whole lot up that's publicly available.
Okay.
Right. I'll put up snippets here and there because I want people to pay to come to see a show. I want people to. If I put up a whole hour show completely free, why would anyone come and see me?
Yeah. Well, I don't think
Right?
I don't think people watch an hour of comedy.
Well, I don't think they do either,
Yeah.
right? But I'm saying, so, I'll put up a snippet here, a snippet there, but it's always to like, hey, buy my DVD or watch my online this, or, you know what I mean? Like I have what I call my Notflix,
That's a good one.
Notflix special,
That's good.
which is a very good quality show that I did in a theater a few years back, and was shot HD. So it's online, right? I've never pressed a single it could be a DVD, but I never have made a single copy of it as an actual DVD. And the way I make it available is through my website. And if you just all you have to do is join the mailing list, and then you can watch the whole show for a toonie, right?
Yeah.
But it's pulling teeth to get a toonie out of
How
people.
many toonies did you get?
Because everything is free.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. It has to be free. Content has to be free.
Well,
nowadays.
yeah, but you can't make any money that way.
No.
Right?
No,
I mean, this is why the bands these days are charging $500 a ticket because the only money
That's right.
is in live performance, right?
I mean, you look at like things like Facebook and Instagram and all those things, and they were around for years before they monetized it, right? They didn't even know how they were going to get money out of
True.
it.
And some of them still, I mean, Twitter still isn't really monetized.
No.
I mean, it's monetized, but I think it still loses, millions of dollars a day or whatever it is.
Yeah. At the same time, the creator is a billionaire, right?
Right. So how does that work?
No. Wish I knew.
Yeah, it works by being the first one in. like Bitcoin.
Yeah,
right?
the first one in, but like the first one in a slightly different way than the
Yes,
others.
I suppose
right?
so. I suppose
You
so.
know, and for me,
like I wouldn't be involved in any of this shit. I wouldn't be on Facebook, Twitter, any of it, if it wasn't for the business aspect
of
of
course,
it, right?
of course.
Because it's all just it's
a waste
all,
of time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and it's
huge,
toxic, right?
It is toxic,
Yeah.
and it's so easy to just sit down at Facebook and just start scrolling, and then 2 hours later,
Yep.
like what the hell happened to the day?
The dog sitting
You
there with
know?
the leash in its mouth.
Yeah,
It's
where did the
sunsetting.
day go?
Yeah, for sure. I would like to see, and I remember thinking, like talking to Mike McDonald about it too, and he's like, "What would I do on, I would like to see you do a daily thing where you could count on it every single day, where you just say something for 30 seconds about anything."
What is Mike doing on the?
Nothing. No, he goes on
Oh.
Facebook and he posts, things.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he used
yeah.
to do a thing, old jokes that are still relevant or something.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
Every
But-
day I would read that.
No,
and
but he was posting them just to read.
that's right.
Right?
That's right.
And for a few weeks there, I was posting some stuff from like 25, 30 years ago, video clips.
Yeah.
Right? But I need to do more of that.
Yeah, I think you need to do you today. You know what I mean? Because young people, me, like, do you really want to see things that someone's done 30 years ago? No,
Yeah, but on the
once
other
in a
hand,
while.
do you really want to see, if you're a young person, do you really want,
Yeah.
someone my age?
Yeah, for sure.
Because there is ageism involved in this business, and I'm starting to notice that.
For sure there is.
Yeah.
And we think about, and I'm not comparing you to anybody that's older than you, but like, what's her name? Estelle Getty or...
Who's older than me? No one.
Well, no, you think like Golden Girl.
Oh, yeah.
Who
yeah.
people were so attracted to because she was still vibrant in the new age medium, right?
Right.
And so, I mean...
Oh, you think about Betty White.
Betty White, sorry, yes.
Yes,
Betty White, for
yes.
sure. Right? And
Betty White's just an amazing story from the get-go, though, right?
I don't know her story other than...
Well, I'm just saying that she was around for so long, but she still, like when she was doing the Mary Tyler Moore show, she looked much younger than she was already.
Yeah.
Right. So she's aged incredibly well.
Yeah.
And become an icon. Like if you're a well-known comedian, a comedic icon, you can perform forever because you will always have a certain segment of the population that wants to come and see you.
Well, that's the
right?
Canadian guy, man.
Well, yeah, but find those people. That's the problem.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
It annoys me I mean, it's wonderful, and yet it annoys me no end that people recognize me on the street. They go, "Oh, hey, you're that Canadian guy." Yeah. Okay, fine. That happens a few times a week. But then find those people when I'm trying to do a show somewhere.
Yeah. Well,
I've even done shows places and been out, in a grocery store or whatever, and be, "Hey, you're Glen Foster. So what are you doing here?" "Well, I just did a show last night."
Yeah.
"Oh, well, I didn't know about it." It was
Didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to stay. You can't let the feed go dark nowadays.
No, you can't.
Right? You got to be out there every day.
But even then, it's such a numbers game. When I used to work in advertising, before the days of the internet and everything else, you'd send, and people still do this. You'd send out mailing cards, door to door type thing. So if you sent out 1,000 cards saying, "I've got this product or this sale or this whatever," you sent out 1,000 cards. What do you think the typical return on that would be?
I would say 1,000, less than 1%.
3%.
3%.
If you got 3%
Yeah.
on 1,000,
Yeah.
you'd be jumping for joy.
Yeah.
They used to it's called indicia. Indicia would be the wastage.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So everything else is 3% is your return.
Yeah.
And everything else wasted, thrown away, not noticed. Indicia.
Yeah. So I mean that's
And the
probably
indicia-
still the number, right?
It probably is,
Yeah.
right? So that's why I say if you don't have at least 10,000 Twitter followers or
Mm-hmm.
Facebook followers, and you're limited to 5,000 on you, and Facebook annoys me no end because you do all this work to say, "Hey, go to my page, like my page, whatever," and then you can't reach those people. You can't drill down the data. You can't say, "I want to reach my people that have liked my page in Calgary and send them all a message."
In Calgary, yeah.
You can't do it. You have to buy an ad.
Yeah, that's right.
You have to buy an ad, which means there's a chance that they'll see it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Facebook
sure.
is, I don't know why they just don't allow you to use your own data.
Yeah.
Even charge me.
Yeah.
Charge me to use my own data, but let me use my own data.
Yeah. I think probably Twitter would be the best for that, right? Like once you get someone following you on Twitter,
Twitter's hard because there's no location given.
That's
right?
true, yeah.
So if what I'm saying is, it'd be wonderful if I was doing a show in Calgary, that I could find the 200 friends or whatever that like my page.
That's right.
That live in Calgary.
For sure.
But you can't.
Yeah, that is the tough
right?
part. Because, I mean, you guarantee there's 200 people in Calgary who would buy your ticket.
Yes.
And go to your show. You just need to tell
Find
those
those 200 people.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
That is the
and
challenge.
that's the yeah.
Which you think it would be easier nowadays, right? With the ability to
you
reach
would think,
anyone.
But it isn't, because people don't want to be reached.
Yeah. People don't want to be reached.
That's the other end of it.
And
right?
the people who control that are obviously realize they want money to reach those people.
To reach those people.
Yeah, that is tough. Okay, so let's go back to Just for Laughs, your first Just for Laughs. Yeah, we'll just do a few more minutes.
Yeah,
I want to talk about. You're good with time?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've gone from 5 years in comedy to the Just for Laughs festival.
I did my first Just for Laughs in 1988.
Okay, so that's
so that would be 6 years.
6 years.
Well, 6 or so years.
Wow.
Well, I mean, it would be 8 years really, because you think about it, if I really got going in about 1980-ish, and then 2 years to Evening at the Improv.
So Evening at the Improv was before Just for Laughs.
Before Just for Laughs,
okay.
yeah. And then a large gap before I did any other television at all.
Okay.
And that would be 1988.
At Just for Laughs.
At Just for Laughs,
okay.
yeah. And I think one of the reasons I got Just for Laughs was something I said at the end of my showcase set for Just for Laughs that year, which was that, there's all these different sort of comedic characters, and if you're really quiet at the one end of the scale, then you're Stephen Wright. And if you're loud at the other end, you're Sam Kinison. But if you're just in the middle, who are you? Glen Foster, thank you.
That's good.
And
that gave me
the guy actually told me, said, yeah, it was that little bit you did at the end that sort of swung it for you.
That was good. You had me hooked the whole time, too. I got a little shiver there. Wow. That's amazing. So what was the festival like then?
It's so long ago, I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to do the festival once to know how to do the festival, right? Because it's so big and it's even bigger and more overwhelming now, right? Because they have all these little side venues and side shows and everything else. Whereas back there, it was more about the main show, and it was a huge thrill, obviously. Yeah.
Was that the goal a couple of years into comedy? Was there a goal when you started comedy?
Well, for Canadians, the goal was get Just for Laughs, because that was, there were a lot of guys getting signed right off of Just for Laughs type thing. And of course, all that ended the year I did it.
Signed for a TV show? Or?
Well, getting Letterman or getting The Tonight Show, that kind of thing, or finding agents or managers, American agents, management, etc., which is the kind of the goal of doing Just for Laughs.
Okay.
But I think it's that sort of change now too, because a lot of these people whose job you would think it would be to find new talent, not really looking.
Yeah, or they can find it anywhere.
Or they can find it anywhere. They can go on YouTube, whatever. It's more of a vacation for them.
I see.
It's like they meet all their buddies from New York and L.A. and they all party in Montreal on expense accounts.
Yeah.
At Canadian dollars.
Yeah, which is, at the same time, that's also an important thing, right?
It is an important thing, but it's partying and schmoozing and all that thing, all of which I suck at, right? It's one. Have you seen Jerry Seinfeld's? Was it Comedian? Not Comedian. The one he did recently.
Yeah, before Jerry before Seinfeld.
Jerry before Seinfeld.
Yeah,
he said something in there which really struck me as really nailing down the stand-up psyche, and that was, I can talk to all of you, but I can't talk to any of you.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah,
that whole notion of talking to a group of people versus a one-on-one, which I find difficult. I find small talk difficult. I find, one-on-one conversation, I'd much rather, because stand-up, you're talking to people.
Yeah.
Or talking at people, right? Which is another thing I find hard when people say, in a social situation, oh, tell us a joke. Well, I'll pull out a street joke.
Yeah.
I'll pull out a joke,
Oh, you do it. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm not going to do a bit.
Yeah.
Right? Because doing a bit requires putting on a persona kind of thing, and then it's no longer a conversation, it's a presentation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, probably been in that situation
Somebody
as well,
said that
right?
to you this morning at the fire station. They say something funny.
Say something funny.
Yeah, 3 Jews walk into a bar. Mitzvah. I just invented that on the spot.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but that was terrible. But I don't usually answer that question. I'm like, I go, just make a stupid sound.
Right. You know what I mean? And they don't, and because again, it's a different skill.
For sure. That's the talent of a comedian.
And a huge part of showbiz and getting ahead and everything else is connections and networking and everything else. And if you're not good at schmoozing, you're not good at networking.
That's right. That's a huge part.
You know?
I mean, that's the same. You come into a club, you shake the owner's hand, thank him for being there,
Right.
do your set.
All that.
Thank everybody, thank him on your way out,
Sure.
right? That's going to get you another set.
I can do all that, I mean, I go on stage, I do the job, I deliver.
Yeah.
But I'm not necessarily someone who people want to party with after the show or, and that's what you have to be. You have to make, people going to work with you. That's what they want.
That's right.
Right. Because they can work with anybody.
They want someone that's easy, fun to be around.
Right.
For sure. Yeah. That's and like you said, that's what the festival sort of is now, right? It's get to know the right people, and
Right.
everyone gets in the same area, and
but it's also very youth driven.
Yeah.
Right. Because they want people that they can take and shape and mold and everything else. And,
that's a good point.
Because also there's why would someone take me on as a manager when realistically what have I got left? Right. I mean, just from a physical standpoint.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
Whereas if you pick up a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
You might have a 20-year career ahead of them.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure. That's
or a
fair.
40-year, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
For sure. So, just for laughs, 8 times?
Yeah.
Was that consecutive or?
No, not at all.
No.
88, 95, 2000, 2003, 2008, 2000. The last one I did was 2014. So there was a 7-year gap between the first and the second. Then I did a couple kind of year on, year off kind of thing. Then there was 2008.
Yeah.
Then another 7-year gap.
Okay.
To 2015. I don't think
2015.
2014. Pardon me, 6-year
okay.
gap.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll do it again.
You don't think you'll do it again?
I don't think I'll get the opportunity because they're always about, we want young and new, and then they bring the same Americans every year.
Are you saying that to provoke the?
I'm not trying to provoke. I'm just
for
saying
laughs
that.
gods?
No, I'm not trying to provoke anybody. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd happily do it again.
Yeah.
I just don't think the opportunity is going to come.
But you're going to keep trying.
It's well, of course I'll keep trying. I mean,
Yeah.
What do you do otherwise?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Well, what is the goal? I mean, you've made a career out of it, right? You pay the bills with it. You've done just for laughs. What is the goal? Just the same? Keep going in that same
All
direction?
I've ever wanted to do is what I do in bigger places for more money. That's all I've ever wanted to do.
That's the
right?
whole thing right there.
Yeah, but I mean, I am running into the economics of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Who are some of the people that you looked up to when trying
Originally?
to create your path? The whole way along, yeah.
The first comedy I ever heard was Bill Cosby.
Okay.
The first comedy I really ever heard, and that was because we had a very progressive church minister, and in youth group, we actually listened to Noah's Ark.
Okay.
By Bill Cosby.
Yeah, I've listened to
right?
it fairly recently.
Yeah, and it probably isn't even hold up that well now. But so in the early days, Bill Cosby, Bob Newhart, Woody Allen, and then Steve Martins, and then I started to see people in clubs, Sam Kinison, Stephen Wright, and then Carlin I discovered eventually, and it's kind of a two-edged sword discovering Carlin because on the one hand, it's amazing to watch Carlin and the huge volume of work that he put out, but on the other hand, nothing ever feels good enough after that, right? When you see someone like that and you're like, well, my comedy isn't changing the world. I'm not doing anything, and maybe at that point you start to get a little more like I should be doing, socially aware comedy, or I should be doing this. You start to get in your own head, right? And really, you should just be trying to be funny.
Okay.
Right?
Why is it that someone like Carlin can be funny and have a message?
Well, Carlin was, what people forget is that Carlin had some very clever social commentary stuff. he had a lot of stuff that was more angry than funny,
Mm-hmm.
but he also had a lot of stuff that was just dumb and funny,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So
Definitely.
he would play both sides of the fence,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it would be like really thinky on the other hand and completely no-brainer,
Within the same bit.
within this, well, not within the same bit, but in the same show, certainly,
yeah.
right? He would bounce back and forth between,
Yeah.
you know.
So there's never, I mean, not never, but let's talk about your creative process then. Where does it start from?
I wish I knew.
Just inspiration, just write down.
The best jokes to me are things that just pop into your head and you're not sure where they came from, right? I mean, you can say I'd like to write a joke about such and such something going on in the news, and there's sort of a process for that, which I'm not fully aware even of my own process. But the best jokes to me are the ones that just pop into my head. And I'm like, I don't know exactly. I kind of know where that came from because I've been thinking about this topic or that topic, but the joke itself, where did that come from? I don't know.
And do you write it down on your phone, a piece of paper?
I email myself.
Email yourself?
Yeah, I do a lot of emailing myself. I'll just say joke in the headline. And,
Okay. Yeah, and when?
I actually at one point had an actual specific email address
Oh, that's a good
set
idea.
up. Yeah,
That's a great.
but
idea.
it all goes through Gmail. You know, Gmail's great because you can do a lot of filtering and so on and so forth. Gmail is what you can do conditional forwarding, right? Which is if it has this in the headline or that in the body, then it should go to this box or that.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So how often do you read those emails?
Like,
do you have a time you sit down of the day or the week?
No. I probably should do. I'm very good at recording. I'm very good at writing. There's a big gap with me, and I'm exploring this a lot lately, between think and do.
Yeah.
And a lot of people they'll make a list of things and they'll go, all right, well I have to do this, and this, and I'll make a list and I'll check them off as I go. I make thousands of lists, and that's where it ends.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's done. To me, doing it is putting it on the list.
Yeah.
Right, which is not
Yeah.
done. Right.
Yeah, but I mean, it has to happen at some point. You have like lots of material.
Yes,
right?
it has to happen at some point. But it has. I've raised procrastination to ridiculous levels. Ridiculous levels.
Yeah.
I'm sort of naturally lazy.
Yeah.
But I'm also a procrastinator and a perfectionist. So I don't get around to doing it.
Yeah.
And once I do, it's never right.
It's never right. So then you do so. Yeah. So you have something, and you get up on stage, and you've recorded it, and then presumably.
So I've listened. If I listen to it a month later, I'll go, well, that's crap. I'm doing that way better now.
Yeah.
You know.
So then you don't listen to it.
Some of it I listen to, some of it I don't. It
Okay.
depends what my requirements are at the time. Like if I'm working on something, then
Yeah.
I'll record it 5 times. I'll listen to every one of those,
Yeah.
right? And I'll try and improve it along the way, type thing, or watch the video, whatever.
So you need a deadline, sort of.
Oh, I definitely need deadlines,
Yeah.
and even then, I blow through deadlines. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I always
Very
say
similar to-
I always say I am the weakest link in my own organization. I would be much, much further ahead if someone else was in charge of me.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing how successful you've become? Because you're a very successful person in your field, right? I mean, and to have all these.
Yes and no. I mean, I've reached more success than the average person.
Yeah.
But the higher up the ladder you go, the what's the word I'm looking for here? You haven't achieved that level or the next thing.
Well, we're
or
always
whatever.
looking to other people.
You're always
right?
looking to other people, exactly. Going, why am I not doing that? Why am I not doing that? And a big part of it is being scatterbrained and lazy.
Yeah, which is part of the charm.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, but it's something that I've been bringing out a lot more in the last couple of years, talking about my scattered, process, if you can even call it that.
Yeah.
For
sure. That's exactly
my next CD, I think, is going to be called Unchecked.
Because for the boxes that
Yes.
you've left unchecked.
Exactly.
That's
and
good.
also the double meaning of, going over the line type thing, unchecked, no boundaries kind
Yeah.
of.
Well, that's yeah.
Which is not so easy to do these days because there are fucking boundaries everywhere, and
Exactly.
it's getting worse and worse with the political correctness and
Yeah.
the snowflakes and the so on and so forth.
Yeah. And you have no problem commenting on all of that, right?
That's what I've been doing lately.
Yeah.
It's what I've been doing lately.
Which is your thing, which is
But
what draws me to you.
It's taken a lot more flack lately than it used to.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is what you want. It's what
Kind of,
interest,
I suppose.
right?
Yeah, I guess.
Eyeballs.
I guess
That's
so.
all we need is eyeballs.
Yeah, but what I don't need is people. Actually, what I would like is people protesting out my show, outside my show.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that. Yeah, because then people go, "Oh, I guess there's a show here."
Yeah. Who is it? Glen Foster. I got to go check him out. Yeah. I've
Exactly.
been meaning to.
Well, the T-shirt that I did years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Still relevant.
Yeah. My
You
Canada.
know, My Canada includes every bitching, whining province, Aboriginal, feminist, minority, and special interest group. Right? Still relevant, sadly, because in Canada, nothing changes.
Nothing.
But things are changing, and they're changing for the worse. They're changing for this whole Laurier business right? Jordan Peterson, all that. And, and now Laurier is talking about setting up a task force to study freedom of speech. It's well, you fucking idiots. Freedom of speech doesn't require a task force. In fact, the less people involved in freedom of speech, the more free it is.
That's right. By definition, I believe.
And I'm a hardcore freedom of speech. I don't care what kind of horrible, hate-filled whatever you say, you have the right to say it. And I, for one, would like to know where the haters are. Oh, that guy said something horrible. Maybe we should watch him.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You're not allowed to say this. So if you take away people's words, what are they left with?
Yeah.
Actions.
That's right.
Right? And what's more dangerous?
Yeah. Give him enough rope to hang themselves.
Right.
That's for sure.
So,
how did that Canadian guy nickname come about?
I was in England at the time, actually.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I started, you'd get off stage and hear people muttering around, like that Canadian guy. He was funny. And I thought, well, maybe I wonder if I could get that CanadianGuy.com.
Okay.
And I did, and it makes a lot more sense outside of Canada, obviously. But people misunderstand that it's not a flag waving, beer drinking, donuts and hockey and all that.
Yeah.
It's more about how if you're watching a Canadian show and you discussing it the next day and you go, who was in it? Oh, that Canadian guy, right?
Yeah.
And how that we don't really remember names unless there's massive exposure involved, right? So in a way, it's kind of doing what the clubs do, that you don't go to see. Well, these days it's different, of course, because people can Google. And, they see a name on a marquee and they'll just Google, and maybe there's some video clips or where they can decide whether. But really, it's like you don't go to Yuck Yucks to see Glen Foster or Mike McDonald. You go to Yuck Yucks, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like generic branding, and that's kind of what I tried to do with myself, right? And the biggest push I got for it was the 2000 comedy special I did, which was called That Canadian Guy, which still reruns on the curse and the blessing of Canadian showbiz is that everything that you've ever done is repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated, which is great in a way. Like if I could afford advertising on the Comedy Network, then I could say, hey, it's me. I'm that guy that you see all the time on the Comedy Network, like so.
My commercial will precede and be after this.
Exactly.
That
would be the best place to find my audience.
Yeah, you're right. And you took out an ad in a newspaper a year ago.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't find the ad. I was looking for the ad, but I found articles about the fact that you had done that.
Yeah. Well, the ad was it was a play on, these ads. You see these ads, and in the very top corner of the ad, it'll say advertisement, and there's a name for it, and it's called advocational advertising or something like that, where it's not really they make it look like a story, right? Yeah, but it's not a story.
Different font.
It's an ad, and that's why they have to put up in the corner advertising in tiny little letters, so that they're not liable for it running as a story, right? So I put an ad in that said, comedian runs ad that looks like newspaper article.
That's funny.
And it was stupid. I mean, it's a small local town paper. I think it cost me a few $100, but it was dumb because kind of throwing money away. I was trying to generate some Christmas party business, whatever, right? Or, private corporate stuff. but at the same time, it was funny.
It is funny,
right?
yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
sometimes, occasionally, I will throw money at something just because I think it's funny.
Yeah, that is a good.
Right?
It's a good.
But
thing
is
to
that
do.
as a business move, probably pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
But as a
yeah.
laugh,
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Right.
It is
Because the
very
whole ad
hilarious.
was about how the ad appeared to be
Yeah.
like a real article, but if you read it very closely, like right in the copy, it said. This it looked like a real article when I read it, but it is actually an ad when I got to the
You know
end.
what? I did read
Right?
that, thinking I was reading an article.
Thinking you were reading an
about it.
article,
Yeah.
but the article is about the. I like
love
things
it.
that are what you would call self-referential, right? Which a good example of self-reference would be there is a period at the end of this sentence,
Yeah, that's good.
right? So you're referring to the thing that you're
Yeah.
within
that's good.
itself, right?
Yeah,
and a
it's
lot of
good.
my comedy kind of folds back on itself in a space-time continuum.
Yeah, which is awesome. That's great. So tonight you're gonna go do comedy somewhere, I can imagine.
Oh yeah, Carlton Place.
Okay.
Yeah, just because I'm staying at a cottage. It's about a half an hour from there.
Oh, awesome.
So I'll be popping out there because I like to get on stage here there once
Yeah,
in a while.
yeah.
Because I mean you need to do it. You need to stay fresh and you need to.
Yeah. No holidays.
If you don't
right?
do it, if you don't do it for a couple weeks, you forget stuff. You know.
Yep. For
I mean
sure.
the way to stay sharp is just get out there and do it more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's been an hour 20 minutes.
Has it really?
Yes.
Oh,
Thank
my
you very
goodness.
much. I appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Visit my website, thatcanadianguy.com.
Yeah. Anything else?
Actually, do you know Lawrence Morgenstern?
Yes, for sure.
Well,
Hilarious.
Lawrence Morgenstern and I have started a podcast, which we went through so many different name changes. It's so hard to find a name that isn't already out there,
Yep.
And we finally settled on the Morgan Foster Dump.
How
right?
often you do that?
Well, here's the thing. We're going to be doing it live
Okay.
on Funny 820, which is an all-comedy radio station.
Love that station.
We're going to be doing it live on Funny 820 out of Hamilton every Wednesday
Yeah.
at noon.
That's awesome.
So that's starting on January 17th.
Yeah.
And it's going to be called Hump Dump Live.
That's great. And you can get that online too.
And it'll be available online as well. Yeah.
you could get it
through-
live online too through internet radio.
sure you can. Yeah, that's
I've
right.
listened to
Yeah,
that
that's
quite a
right.
bit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Lawrence is very funny.
Lawrence
guy
is
too.
hysterical.
Yeah,
he's a
he
hysterical
can just
individual.
Go
Yeah.
like crazy.
I know, and that's
Yeah.
the thing of it too. So between the two of us, we should be able to
Yeah.
to fill the hour, and it's we kind of get a jump on all the jokes that are coming for the weekend.
That's right.
But we get scooped by the weekend that went past.
That's great. So that's every week, every Wednesday?
It'll be every week, every Wednesday
Oh, I look forward to
on
that.
Funny 820.
That'll be
If you go to
huge.
my website, I'm going to have information about it soon. Again, at thatcanadianguy.com, where you can also watch my online Notflix special.
And get a T-shirt and sign
And
up
get a
for
T-shirt
a
and
VIP
all
member.
kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff. No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.